The broom stopped mid-sweep. Dust hung in the air like it was waiting for permission to fall. He stood by the door with a chipped mug in his hand, watching her small arms push grit toward the edge of the porch. The older woman lingered a step behind the girl, eyes sharp, body tight, ready to pull her back if needed. "You said I could finish the porch," the girl said without turning. "I didn't say," he started. She looked up then. Her face was calm. Too calm. Her mouth opened like she already knew the answer. "Papa?" The word hit him hard. His grip tightened. Coffee sloshed against the rim. "Don't," the woman said fast. He swallowed. "What did you call me?" The girl blinked. "That's what you are now." He laughed once, sharp and empty. "No. I'm not." "You didn't stop me," she said. Silence spread. The boards creaked under his boots. He looked past her, at the woman. "She shouldn't say that," he said. "She says what works," the woman replied. The girl rested the broom against the railing. "Can I finish inside too?" He stared at her hands. Dirt under the nails. Knuckles scraped raw. "You hungry?" he asked. "Yes," she said. The woman didn't answer. She watched him like she was counting exits. "I got bread," he said. "Beans." "That'll do," the woman said. The girl smiled. "Papa cooks slow." "I don't cook," he said. "You will," she said. The wind pushed the door behind him. It bumped his shoulder. He didn't move. The house behind him felt tight, like it was listening. "Who taught you that word?" he asked. The girl shrugged. "I listen." "To who?" he asked. She pointed at the porch. "Places." The woman stepped closer. "We won't stay long." He nodded. "Didn't ask you to." "You don't have to," she said. He looked back at the girl. "You got a name?" She tilted her head. "You didn't ask first." He sighed. "I'm asking now." She thought, then said it. Soft but sure. The name scraped something old in him. He turned away before it showed. His eyes caught on a nail in the wall where a coat used to hang. He hadn't touched it in years. He remembered another small voice once, long gone, and shoved it down hard. His chest tightened, then steadied. "You can come in," he said. "For now." The girl didn't move. "Say it." "Say what?" "That we can stay." He hesitated. The mug shook in his hand. The sound of the liquid felt loud. "You can stay," he said. "Till when?" the woman asked. "Till morning." "That's not what you said," she replied. He opened the door wider. The hinge groaned like it remembered something bad. "Inside," he said. The girl stepped past him. Her shoulder brushed his leg. He flinched. "Papa's house smells like rust," she said. "It's old," he replied. "It's tired," she said. The woman followed, slow, eyes everywhere. "We'll leave before trouble finds us." "It already did," he said. She stopped. "Then you shouldn't have opened the door." He set the mug down. His hand left a ring on the table. "You gonna tell me why you're here?" he asked. The woman shook her head. "Not yet." The girl touched the wall. "It knows you." "Walls don't know," he said. She smiled anyway. He closed the door. The sound was final. Dust drifted down outside, settling where the broom had stopped. He stood there, blocking the way out without meaning to. "Papa," the girl said again, quieter. He didn't answer. He stepped aside instead, giving them room, and the house breathed them in. They stood in the doorway, shadows from the porch stretching across the floorboards. The girl shifted her weight, looking from the door to the man and back again, like testing how much space she could claim. The woman's eyes scanned every corner, every window, her hands brushing against the walls as if mapping exits and hiding places all at once. Silence hung heavy, broken only by the faint creak of the hinges and the slow groan of the floor beneath their feet. He moved first, pouring coffee without asking. Steam curled in thin, twisting lines. The mug rattled in his hand as he set it on the counter. The girl's fingers itched to touch it, but she didn't. She touched the edge of the countertop instead, leaving smudges like small footprints on the wood. She leaned against it, watching him pour, watching the liquid settle. "We'll leave before dark," the woman said, voice low, clipped, not a suggestion but a warning. "You'll stay till morning," he said. His words were flat, final. He didn't move to push her out or pull her in. He just stated it like a fact of the world. "That's not what I said," she shot back, eyes narrowing, hands tightening into fists at her sides. The girl tilted her head. "Papa has a well." "Don't call me that," he snapped, but the words sounded hollow. The broom was still in the corner where she'd leaned it, untouched. "You didn't stop me," she said. Her voice carried no fear, only certainty. The woman stepped forward, hand brushing the girl's shoulder. "You're playing dangerous, little one." "I'm not," the girl replied. "It's already here." "What is?" he asked. "The walls." "This one," she said, pressing her small hand against the plaster near the kitchen doorway. "They listen." "Walls don't do that," he said, irritation flickering in his voice. He rubbed his thumb across the rim of the mug as if trying to anchor himself. "This one does," she said, matter of fact, and the sound of her certainty made him flinch. He looked at the older woman, who refused to meet his eyes, her jaw tight. "Don't tell him stories," she muttered, almost to herself. "They're already here," the girl said again, stepping closer to the corner where the shadows pooled. She ran her fingers along the edge of the windowsill, feeling for the unseen, testing for the weight of memory, of something buried beneath years of dust and silence. The man shifted uneasily, looking toward the back of the house. The wind rattled the screen door, and the shadows moved like they were alive, stretching thin fingers across the room. He drank from the coffee mug slowly, as if waiting for something, though neither of the women knew what it could be. He cleared his throat. "Sit. Just for now. Sit." The girl moved toward a chair, her small body tense with alertness. She ran her hand over the worn seat cushion, eyes scanning the floorboards for splinters, for nails that might bite. The woman followed more cautiously, arms crossed, one hand clutching the strap of a worn satchel that had carried whatever meager belongings they could bring. "You can't stay," the woman said, almost under her breath, though he heard it. "Not here. Not with him." "You're here already," he said. His tone was neutral, though his hands tightened around the mug. "The house doesn't belong to me, not really. But it's mine to hold right now." The girl glanced at him. "It smells different inside," she said. "It smells like it remembers." He frowned. "Smells like old wood," he said. "No," she whispered. "It smells like it waited." He wanted to argue, wanted to push her back outside, but he didn't. He didn't move. He let the words hang. They filled the air like smoke, winding through the room, curling around the furniture and the old photographs on the walls. The photographs were mostly blank faces, faded and hard to see, but the girl reached out to touch one anyway, running her fingers along the frame like she could wake it up. "You touch things like they might vanish," he said, more to himself than to her. "They might," she said. "Everything does." The woman shook her head, tugging lightly at the girl's sleeve. "Stop that." "It's okay," he said quietly. "Let her." The girl's eyes flicked to the man. "You let me call you Papa," she said softly. "You let me stay." "I did," he said. The words tasted strange, like admitting something he didn't want to. He looked out the window, toward the edge of the porch. Dust motes drifted in a beam of light. Somewhere outside, headlights swept across the yard, moving slowly, then fading. The shadows inside shifted. Something in the house responded to the motion, creaking and settling, as if the walls themselves had taken notice. "See that," but the girl whispered, pointing toward the window. They came to look. Who? He asked. Nothing, she said. Just the eyes. The woman's hands tightened into fists. Don't play with him. I'm not, the girl said. They are already here. He swallowed hard, turning away from the window. Get a chair, he said, nodding toward the table. He set the mug down with a clink. Sit. We'll figure it out. The girl dropped into the chair, but not fully, one foot still on the rung, ready to move. The woman hesitated, then followed, folding herself into the next chair like she was bracing for impact. The man took a deep breath, letting the silence stretch just a little, feeling the house settle around them, the shadows moving back into corners. The wind rattled a window pane again. Somewhere outside, the gravel shifted beneath tires long gone. He didn't look back at the door, he didn't close it. The porch was empty, waiting for the light to shift. The door stayed open. The girl leaned her head against the edge of the chair and exhaled softly. It's okay here, she said. Papa's here. He didn't answer. He just watched the dust settle and the wind play through the screen. Outside, headlights glimmered on the edges of the yard one last time before fading completely. The house held them like it had been waiting, and for the first time, he let it. The quiet didn't last. A truck rolled down the gravel drive, tires grinding against loose stone. The engine cut before it even reached the gate, leaving only the echo of its presence. He saw the shadow at the window first, a badge glinting in the fading light. Authority leaned against the doorframe like it belonged there, though he hadn't invited it. You collecting strays now? The sheriff's voice was rough, more tired than threatening, but it carried weight. The girl stiffened, hiding behind the older woman. The man's jaw tightened. He hadn't expected visitors, especially not this one. Just sweeping help, he said, voice low, careful. We didn't steal anything, the woman said quickly, stepping forward, hands clenching the strap of her satchel. Didn't say you did, the sheriff replied, eyes scanning the porch and landing on the girl. Her small hand brushed the railing. Her eyes, wide and unflinching, met his. Papa said we could stay, she said, voice soft but firm. The word hit the sheriff in the chest. Papa? He blinked once, then narrowed his eyes, studying the man standing beside the doorway. He knew the history. Knew the reputation. Knew the quiet menace behind the man's silence. The man's fingers dug into the railing. He didn't answer, didn't correct her. He only let the word hang between them, heavy and sudden. The sheriff stepped closer. Badge flashing, boots scraping the wood. You know I can't let you harbor people. Especially her. He glanced at the woman. Recognition flickered across his face, old familiarity, old grudges. She's not stealing, the man said. Doesn't matter, the sheriff said. You've got a history. You know the rules. Rules change, the man replied. Not for everyone. The girl pressed closer to him. They didn't come to take me, she said. Papa said we could stay. The sheriff's gaze shifted, landing on her face again. He frowned. You don't call him that. Not you. I can, she said. He didn't stop me. The woman tried to pull her back, but the girl's hand slipped free, curling over the railing. I can, she said again, louder this time. And he said yes. The sheriff's eyes flicked between them, weighing history against the present. He had known the man's silence, the way it could bend people to fear, to respect, to leave you alone. And now this child had named him something no one else could. Something that claimed him entirely. You're pushing it, the sheriff said, voice lower. You know what happens when people think they can just show up and take what they want. They're not taking anything, the man said. They're staying. The girl tilted her head. They didn't come to take me either, she added. Her small fingers traced the edge of the porch as if testing the boundary between them and the outside world. The sheriff studied her, then the woman. And you? He asked. You brought her here? She came on her own, the woman said. We just needed a place for the night. Don't let me find you in trouble again, the sheriff said. He didn't move, though the words carried a threat sharper than any gun. Dust rose in the wake of his boots as he turned back to his truck. The man didn't relax. He watched the shadow of the vehicle stretch across the yard, felt the dust settle on the porch. His chest was tight, his hands still gripping the railing. The girl slid closer to him, small and steady. Her eyes didn't leave the doorway. "They'll come back," the woman muttered. "They always do," the man said. The girl tilted her head. "We'll be here," she said. The sheriff's truck kicked up more dust as it rolled away, the glow of the taillights fading. Silence returned, though it felt different now, heavier, as if the house had shifted. Something had changed. The girl's hand brushed against his arm, seeking proof that he was still there, that he belonged. He let out a slow breath. "Come inside," he said. The words were final, but softer than before. The girl stepped in first, then the woman. He followed, closing the door but leaving the light spilling in. The house seemed to exhale, the floorboards settling under the weight of their presence. Shadows pooled in the corners, restless but contained. The girl wandered to a table, running her hands over old scratches and dents. "It listens too," she said softly. "What?" he asked, voice rough. "The house," she said. "It knows." "It doesn't," he said, though his hand lingered on the edge of the table, feeling the grooves beneath his fingers. "They're already here," she whispered. The older woman frowned but didn't correct her. She only watched, alert, like she could catch the moment the past might strike again. The man set his mug down on the counter, the coffee sloshing slightly. He watched her, then the woman. "Sit," he said. "For now." They obeyed. Dust motes floated through the air, caught in the thin light spilling through the windows. The house groaned as if remembering something, as if it recognized the weight of the sheriff's visit and the child's claim. The girl's small hand traced the edge of a chair. "It smells different," she said. "Smells like old wood," he said. "No," she replied. "It smells like it waited." He didn't argue. He didn't move. The words hung in the air, unchallenged. Outside, the yard lay quiet, but he felt the weight of unseen eyes, the remnants of authority still lingering like a shadow across the porch. The woman crossed her arms. "We can't stay," she said again. "For now," he said. He let the words settle. He didn't promise forever. He didn't offer safety. He only offered the room, the house, the porch where the broom had stopped and the girl had spoken a word that changed everything. The door stayed open, just a crack, letting the wind whisper through. Dust settled on the floorboards. Somewhere deep in the walls, old timber moaned. He watched the girl, saw her small hand resting on the table, her eyes steady and unafraid. "Papa," she said again, quiet this time. He didn't answer. He only stepped back, letting the house hold them, letting it remember, letting it wait for what was coming next. The house was quiet after the sheriff left, though the silence felt thick, like something had been pressed into it and left there. Dust motes drifted in the slanting sunlight, and the floorboards creaked as the girl took tentative steps inside. She ran her fingers along the edges of the counters, the doorframes, the windowsills, as if she could memorize every scratch, every groove, every hollow where the house might whisper. The man watched her from the doorway, arms crossed, coffee mug cooling in his hands. The older woman stayed near the back, surveying the rooms, calculating exits and possible dangers. "Your walls listen," the girl said, her voice low, carrying through the kitchen and into the shadows. "Walls don't do that," he said, moving toward her, though he kept his distance. "This one does," she said, pointing to a corner near the staircase. Her small fingers lingered over the plaster, tracing the outline of something invisible. "They remember things you don't want them to." "Don't tell him stories," the woman muttered, almost too late to stop herself. "They're already here," the girl replied. Her eyes flicked to the staircase, to the dark hallway beyond, to the corners where the light refused to go. "They watch. They listen. They wait." He took a slow step closer. "Who?" "Everything," she said. Her voice was firm, almost commanding. "The walls, the floors, the shadows. This house isn't empty. It knows what's been done here. The older woman glanced at him, a warning in her eyes, but he didn't flinch. He let the girl talk, let her move freely, let her claim the space. He could feel the tension in the air, feel the house responding to her touch and her words, feel it leaning in as if curious. She moved down the hall, small feet pressing against the floorboards, stopping at each room, lingering near old furniture. "The corners hurt," she said. "They hold things that make you quiet." He followed silently. "Why do you know that?" "Because I listen," she said simply. Her hand brushed the edge of a chair in the corner. "I know where it aches." The woman stepped closer, tugging at the girl's sleeve. "Stop poking around," she hissed. "I'm not poking," the girl said. "I'm asking." "Nothing answers," he said. "Not really." She shook her head. "Some things answer if you look right. If you touch right. They're already talking." He didn't move her or correct her. She was right in the way only children could be right, seeing what adults avoided, naming what adults feared. She approached a closed door at the end of the hall. The man hesitated, hands brushing the wall beside him. This was a door he had avoided for years. He had never opened it. The girl pressed her small palm against it, feeling for seams, for the resistance in the wood. "This one knows," she said. Her voice softened, almost reverent. "This one remembers more than you do." He clenched his fists. The house seemed to settle around them, the shadows gathering tighter in the corners. The air smelled of dust, of wood, of something faintly burned and long forgotten. "Don't," he said, voice low, almost a growl. "They're already here," she whispered, pressing her forehead against the door. "They've been waiting for me." The woman stood behind her, silent, watching, waiting for the girl to misstep, for the moment when knowledge would become danger. But the girl stayed, still and quiet, letting the house speak to her in ways only she could hear. The man exhaled slowly, letting tension leave his shoulders in a long hiss. He watched her, this small, fearless thing who could name what he had buried and ignored for decades. She leaned back just slightly, resting her head against the door. "I can feel it," she said. "It's like it's breathing." "It's not," he said, his voice firmer, though he didn't move her. "It is," she insisted. "It remembers. It waits. It watches. Just like people." The woman stepped closer to him, hands tight at her sides. "Don't let her go too far," she said. He shook his head, almost imperceptibly. "She needs to." The girl pressed her hand against the door again, fingers splayed, tracing the grain. "Some things know more than you," she said. "Some things watch longer. Some things never forget." He swallowed hard. The house groaned under the weight of memory, floorboards creaking, walls settling. He felt the past stir, felt the quiet pulse of the things she could sense and he had spent years trying to ignore. "She's too small to carry that," the woman said softly, almost to herself. "She's not carrying it," he said. "She's naming it. That's different." The girl lifted her head slightly, eyes meeting his. "Naming it makes it less scary," she said. "You don't get to ignore it. I won't let you." He didn't answer. The weight of her words settled over him, pressing into his chest. He felt the old fear, the old guilt, the things buried beneath years of silence and shadow. And he let it sit there. He didn't push it away. He didn't fight it. He only watched her, small and resolute, face pressed against the door he had avoided for decades. The sun shifted, light falling along the hallway in thin, angled beams. Dust motes floated in the air, caught in the light like tiny ghosts. The girl breathed slowly, her small chest rising and falling. The door waited silently beneath her forehead, and for the first time in years, he felt the weight of the house differently, not as a burden but as a witness. The girl rested there, still and quiet, head pressed against the door. The older woman stepped back, hands soft at her sides, letting the child claim the space. The man stayed just behind her, watching, silent, and for the first time, he realized the house wasn't empty. It was listening. And so was he. Night fell without ceremony. The porch light flickered once, then steadied, throwing long shadows across the boards. Inside, the house smelled of wood smoke and dust, of coffee long gone cold, of old iron and secrets that hadn't been spoken in years. The girl had curled into a corner with a thin blanket, small fists clutching it to her chest. The man moved quietly, stacking dishes in the sink, listening to the house settle around them. The older woman watched him from the doorway, her body tense, every line of her posture warning him not to cross the unspoken line between shelter and ownership. "We don't stay for free," the woman said finally, voice low but sharp, cutting through the quiet. "I didn't ask," he replied, stacking plates with deliberate slowness. "Men like you always do," she said, stepping closer, eyes locked on him. "They always act like it's their right to decide. They take what they want. They leave the rest to rot." "You don't know me," he said. He set the last plate down and rubbed his hands over his face, the weight in his chest pressing down. "I know your silence," she said, her voice harder now, unflinching. "I know what you've left behind. I know what you think hiding will solve. I know the things you don't say." The girl shifted in the corner, watching the exchange. Her eyes, wide and steady, seemed to measure the tension, understanding more than she had any right to. "Why did you run?" the man asked suddenly, voice low. The woman's eyes flicked to the child. "Because men like him don't leave space for people like us," she said, almost whispering. "Because I needed to survive. Because I knew what would happen if I stayed." He didn't answer, didn't move. The house seemed to hold its breath, listening. The floorboards groaned under a settling roof, the wind pressed against the windows, and the shadows pooled more densely in the corners as if leaning in to hear. "The ranch had a name once," she continued, voice sharper. "A name that mattered. A name people feared. And we were just ghosts walking in the edges, trying not to be noticed." He glanced toward the stairs, where the girl crouched, small and tense, listening, absorbing everything. "What do you want?" he asked finally, voice low. "We want a place to survive. A place to be safe. And I don't care if that means working for it. Rules are written in scars, not words," she said. The girl tilted her head. "Like the walls," she murmured. He looked at her and said nothing. The statement was accurate, she understood more than either adult wanted to admit. The woman stepped closer. "I'm not asking for charity. I'm asking for honesty. And boundaries. We follow them. You follow them. Nobody gets to overstep without consequence. Do you understand?" He swallowed. The taste of years of avoidance and solitude rose bitterly in his mouth. "I understand," he said. "Good," she said. She softened slightly, just enough for him to see it. "Because this is how it works. You want them here, you follow the rules. You want to protect, you earn it. And if you break them, we leave. You hear me?" "Yes," he said. The word felt heavier than he intended. The girl climbed to her feet, small and still. She ran a hand along the railing near the stairs. "Rules are okay," she said. "As long as the walls listen." He didn't respond. He felt the weight of her gaze, the weight of the woman's stare, and something deepened and shifted. The rules weren't a cage, they were a map. They were a promise. They were survival. "Unlock the door," the woman said. Her tone was final, commanding, leaving no room for argument. He moved toward the door, keys jangling in his hand, dropping them into the lock. The click of metal sliding into place sounded louder than any conversation they'd had. The door swung open, revealing the dark night outside. The wind carried the faint scent of the distant fields, dry earth, and the faint ghost of smoke from old fires. "You have to understand," she said, stepping past him and into the room, "we came here because we had nowhere else to go. And we'll leave if it's not safe. That's our rule." "Then it is safe," he said quietly. He held the door open, letting them step inside fully. The girl glanced at him, small and steady. "Thank you," she said. "You're welcome," he replied, though the words felt strange in his mouth, heavy with something unspoken. The woman moved to the corner, folding her arms. "I hope you know what you're doing," she said. Because rules are meaningless if you can't follow them yourself. I know, he said. He closed the door gently behind her. The house seemed to settle around them again, quiet but alive, listening to the conversation that had just passed through its walls. The girl ran her fingers over the worn floorboards, tracing patterns that weren't there, naming things that adults try to ignore. The man watched her, felt the weight of responsibility pressing in for the first time in years. The older woman's eyes never left him, measuring, calculating, testing, weighing the man she had reluctantly trusted to provide them shelter. Outside, the wind shifted, brushing against the siding, rattling windows. Somewhere distant, an animal cried. Inside, the air was thick with anticipation, with fear, with something older than any of them. And for the first time, he didn't push it away. He let it sit. He let the girl name it. He let the woman set the rules. He stepped back from the door, fingers brushing the knob. The house held its breath. The shadows gathered in the corners. And the small, defiant thing who had named him Papa curled her blanket tighter around herself and waited, listening, already knowing more than either adult had hoped she would. He unlocked the door, letting the rules of this fragile arrangement solidify in the quiet darkness. The house exhaled, the floorboards settling, and for the first time, the three of them existed in the same space without immediate threat. For now, survival had a shape, and the shape was measured in silence, in the weight of shadows, and in the careful command of a woman who had seen too much to trust easily. Outside, the night pressed in. Inside, they were contained, uneasy, alive. He closed the door behind them, leaving only a small crack for the wind to whisper through, and for the first time in years, he felt the house listen with him rather than against him. The door swung open, settling with a reluctant creak, and the house exhaled around them. Inside, the air smelled of old paper, dust, and something faintly metallic. Sunlight caught the edges of stacked letters on the counter, a badge lying half hidden beneath a pile of ash, brittle and gray. The man's eyes lingered there, hands tightening at his sides. Years of silence and avoidance pressed against him, heavy as stone. The girl stepped closer to the counter, small fingers brushing the edges of the letters. "This is where you stopped breathing," she said softly. He flinched. "Get out," he said, voice sharp, shaking more than he wanted. "She's right," the woman said, stepping behind the girl, arms crossed. "You can't ignore it anymore." He looked at the badge. Rust and tarnish ate at its edges. He remembered the weight of it once in his palm, the weight of duty, of responsibility, of wrongs done and left unspoken. "You don't know what I did," he said, low, almost a growl. "We know what they did," the woman said. Her voice was steady, unwavering. "And you were part of this house when it happened." The girl leaned over the letters. "These are ghosts," she whispered. "They're not gone." He clenched his fists. Dust rose from the counter as he shifted. "I left them behind," he said. "I thought it would be easier. I thought it would stay buried." "Nothing stays buried," the woman said. Her tone was not accusatory, only factual. Not memories, not houses, not the people who walk in and name it all. The girl pressed her forehead against the counter. "They remember you," she said. "Even when you try to forget." He knelt, reaching for the letters with hesitant fingers. The paper felt brittle, as if it would crumble under the slightest touch. Names, dates, fragments of promises and threats, each one a marker of past misdeeds, each one a reminder of the weight he had carried silently for too long. "They were here," the girl said. "Even before I came. They waited." "They were waiting," he muttered, voice rough, eyes fixed on the badge now. The metal gleamed faintly in the sunlight. His fingers trembled as they hovered above it. Memories of nights spent staring at the same badge, of people looking up to him, of men and women harmed by decisions he'd made and choices left unspoken, all came rushing back in a tide he hadn't felt in decades. "Papa?" the girl asked softly. He shook his head. "Not now," he said. "They're not gone," she insisted. "Even if you hide them, they're not gone." The woman stepped closer, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You can't run from it," she said. "The house remembers. I remember. She remembers." He swallowed, the lump in his throat heavy. Years of avoidance, of silence, of pretending the past was nothing more than a shadow he could ignore, pressed down on him. The badge felt heavier in his palm than it ever had. It was a symbol, a weight, a reminder that the choices he'd made had consequences far beyond what he'd allowed himself to see. "I tried," he said finally. "I thought." "You thought wrong," the woman said softly. "You can't bury this. You can't erase it. But you can face it." The girl reached for the stack of letters. "They want to be seen," she said. "Even ghosts want that." He nodded slowly. The decision didn't feel like freedom, not yet. It felt like submission, like finally letting the weight of all those years press fully against him. The house seemed to lean in, listening, as if waiting for what would happen next. He picked up the badge, feeling the cold metal bite into his skin. Dust rose from the counter, motes swirling in the light, drifting toward the ceiling. The girl watched him, wide-eyed, unafraid, understanding in a way he never expected a child could. The man let his gaze travel over the porch, the house, the yard. The morning light caught the edges of the windows, glinting off glass and metal. For the first time in years, he felt the house as something more than a shelter, more than a weight. It was a presence, alive and responsive, like the girl had said. The girl shifted closer, resting her small hand on his forearm. "Papa doesn't run," she said again, softer this time, as if confirming it aloud for herself. He nodded. He didn't speak. He just let the moment settle, letting the morning hold them in balance, letting the house remember their claim, letting the quiet stretch across the yard. The gate held. The truck was gone. The wind shifted. The house hummed quietly with memory and presence. And for the first time, he felt the fire of authority without smoke, the heat of control without destruction. The moment was fragile, but it was theirs. He turned back toward the porch, the girl following, small and steady. The woman trailed behind, alert but calm. Inside, the house waited, listening, breathing with them, aware that the weight of the past had shifted, just enough for them to hold it without breaking. The afternoon sun slanted through the kitchen windows, catching the dust in golden streaks. The girl crouched near the workbench, small hands tracing the edge of a rusted hinge. The older woman leaned against the counter, arms folded, silent but alert. The man stood nearby, watching her, hands tucked into the pockets of his worn jacket, the quiet weight of authority softening, just enough to let her curiosity breathe. "Can I ask you something?" the girl said finally, looking up. Her voice was careful, measured. He raised an eyebrow. "Depends on what it is." "What's your real name?" she asked. The words were small, but they hung in the air, heavy, impossible to ignore. He stiffened. A shadow crossed his face. For years, he had lived without needing it, without offering it, without letting anyone hold it. Now it felt alive again, tethered to the child who had already named him Papa. "You can't have it," he said at first, tone flat, though his hands tightened in his pockets. "I can try," she said. Her eyes didn't waver. "I just want to know." He exhaled slowly. His jaw worked as he chewed the words in his mind. Names held power. They held history, memory, responsibility. She had already claimed one for him, a name he hadn't given. Could he give her another? Could he risk it? "I'm John," he said finally, voice low, hesitant. He felt the syllable leave his lips like dropping a stone into deep water. The girl blinked once, then twice, taking it in. "Can I keep Papa anyway?" she asked softly. He looked at her, then at the woman. The older woman's lips pressed together in a thin line, but there was something unspoken in her eyes, approval or acceptance, he couldn't tell which. "If you want," he said finally. The words felt fragile, but true. The girl's small face broke into a slow, careful smile. "I do," she said. She shifted to the workbench, picking up a piece of wire and a hammer. "Teach me." He moved closer, kneeling beside her. "First thing you need to know," he said, voice firm but patient, "is how to hold it steady. Don't let it slip. Don't rush." She nodded, small hands wrapping around the tool. His hand guided hers briefly, fingers brushing hers in a steadying motion. She looked up at him, eyes bright. Like this? Better, he said. You've got the patience. The older woman watched silently, letting them have this small space, this quiet lesson. She knew the significance, the subtle claim of trust being forged in the simplest act, teaching a child how to fix a fence, to handle a tool, to hold onto a name. You already decided, the woman said quietly to him. She named you Papa before you had a choice. He didn't answer. He only looked at the girl, small hands gripping the hammer, eyes focused, determination etched into her features. She had claimed him in ways he hadn't anticipated, in ways he couldn't ignore. Papa, she said again, softly, just to test it aloud. It rolled off her tongue like a promise. Yes, he said, voice quiet, steady. Papa is fine. They spent the afternoon fixing the fence, hammer and wire moving in rhythm, the girl learning quickly under his guidance. The older woman hovered nearby, watching, listening, silent but ever present. The house around them creaked and groaned as if settling in approval, walls stretching slightly, ceilings loosening their tension. The girl paused, small hands on the rail. Do you like it? She asked. Being called Papa? He exhaled slowly, shoulders relaxing for the first time in weeks. I don't hate it, he said. She grinned. That's enough. The older woman shifted, moving toward the back door. Supper time soon, she said. The words were casual, but the weight beneath them was clear: order, structure, responsibility. The girl nodded, still smiling. I like Papa, she said again, almost to herself. He watched her for a long moment, feeling the shift inside him. The name, the claim, the small trust, it was all fragile, temporary, but real. And for the first time, he didn't resist it. He didn't pull back. The sun dipped lower, streaking the walls with warm light. The girl straightened, small hands wiping dust from her fingers, and called to him softly. Papa, can we finish the other side tomorrow? He nodded. We will. The older woman sighed, soft but steady, as if acknowledging the slow formation of something that had been missing for years. The girl's small hand brushed against his arm again. Papa, she said, quieter this time, almost a whisper. I think I like it even better now. He let himself smile, faint, careful, holding the name in his mouth like a promise. He didn't correct her, didn't offer another. Papa was enough. It was theirs. And for the first time, the small, quiet house felt like home. Evening pressed in fast, folding shadows across the porch and into the corners of the house. The girl sat on the top step, small knees drawn to her chest, eyes on the darkened yard. The older woman leaned against the railing, scanning the horizon, her jaw tight. The man moved between the two, slow, deliberate, feeling the weight of what had been unearthed, what had been claimed, and what still lingered just beyond their reach. They'll come back, the woman said quietly, more statement than question. Her eyes didn't leave the trees. So will I, he replied. The words were firm, carrying the certainty of someone who had learned the cost of avoidance. He stood taller than he felt, shoulders squared against the weight of memory, of authority, of the past pressing in from all sides. The girl tilted her head. We'll be here, she said softly, small but resolute. The man looked at her, long and steady, and the house seemed to lean with him, listening, holding the promise of that statement in the settling dust and shifting shadows. The walls remembered, the floors creaked, and even the old beams above seemed to exhale, as if acknowledging the fragile claim of presence they had made. He moved inside, steps deliberate across the worn floorboards, stopping at the counter where the old letters had once been stacked. He picked one up, running a finger over the fragile paper, reading the words carefully, memorizing them one last time. Then he set it aside and struck a match. The flame danced over the pile, licking the edges of the letters before he dropped them into the cast-iron stove. The crackle of burning paper filled the quiet house, small sparks flying like tiny ghosts released into the night. The girl watched, eyes wide. They won't haunt us anymore, she asked. They'll always remember, he said softly. But what's left in here is ours now. He tapped his chest. This stays. The woman stepped closer, brushing dust from her sleeve. Not all memories are burned with paper, she said. Her voice was steady, low, and heavy with truth. some follow you anyway. But at least the ones that can hurt are gone. He nodded. We choose what we keep. We choose what stays. The girl's small hand rested on his arm. Can we keep the picture? She asked, pointing to a faded photograph of a long-dead family sitting on the porch. He glanced at it, then back at her. Yes, he said. That one stays. He took it carefully off the shelf and set it on the table, framed by dust motes dancing in the late light. Outside, the wind shifted, tugging at loose boards, rustling leaves in the yard. Somewhere distant, a vehicle rolled by, but the porch gate remained closed, latched firmly. Authority, threat, the past, they pressed in, but he didn't move. He held the gate, held the house, held the small family he had claimed. The woman's eyes softened, just slightly, as if acknowledging the man's transformation. You're different, she said quietly. You won't run. You won't hide. I won't, he said. The words were final but quiet. Not a boast, not a promise to anyone but himself. The girl leaned against the railing, small body relaxing slightly. Papa, she said, voice barely above a whisper. I think they won't scare us anymore. They'll always try, he said, tone steady. But so will we. He went to the porch gate, checking the latch one last time. It clicked securely. He turned back toward the house. The walls, the floors, the ceilings, they seemed to settle, listening, approving, not silent witnesses but participants in the quiet claim of survival, of presence, of what mattered most. The woman moved toward the stove, checking the ashes of the burned letters. Not everything can be destroyed, she said softly. Some things follow you, some things stay in your blood. But we've taken the first step. The man nodded, glancing at the girl. She sat small and steady, watching him, trusting him, holding the space between claim and caution. He reached down, lifting her into his arms briefly, just enough to feel her weight, to feel the anchor she had become. The wind tugged at the windows, rattling them slightly, and he felt the presence of the sheriff, the authority, the memory of old violence pressing at the edges. But inside, the walls held, the floorboards settled, and the small family he had accepted, the girl, the woman, and himself, stood firm against it all. He walked slowly to the table, placing the photograph where the girl had indicated. This stays, he said again, voice steady. Everything else we burn, we bury, or we leave behind. The girl's hand brushed his arm. Papa, she said softly. Thank you for keeping us. He didn't answer immediately. He only let himself feel it, the weight of responsibility, the tension of history, the quiet understanding that home wasn't safety, it was vigilance, it was presence, it was choice. Finally, he exhaled slowly, letting the tension release in a long, measured breath. He moved to the gate, closing it from inside, the click solid and secure. Dust rose from the boards, settling around their feet. The wind shifted, carrying the faint scent of distant fields, of dry earth, of fire long gone. The house seemed to settle with them, walls and floors and ceilings breathing in unison with the small family inside. Threats lingered, history pressed in, but for the first time, he felt something permanent. Not safety. Not triumph. Something quieter, steadier. Something that stayed. The girl leaned against the railing beside him, small fingers brushing his hand. The woman watched from the doorway, shoulders squared, alert but calm. And he, John, former name, former shadow, felt the weight of it all finally rest, not behind him, not ahead, but here, in the space they had claimed together. The gate was locked. The photograph stayed. The house listened. And for the first time, the past could only watch. Morning light spilled across the porch, stretching in long, thin lines over the worn boards. The girl crouched low, broom in hand, moving it carefully across the wood. Dust rose in soft clouds around her, settling slowly back into the cracks and grooves of the porch. The man leaned against the railing, arms crossed, watching quietly. He didn't offer instructions, didn't correct her. He let the rhythm of her movements set the pace. You missed a spot, he said finally, voice low, almost teasing. I know, she replied, sweeping over it again, small hands steady. The older woman moved toward the corner, leaning lightly against the post. She always does, she said quietly, almost to herself, as if noting the certainty of small rituals, the weight they carried. Papa likes it that way, the girl said, sweeping slower now, carefully, deliberately, her eyes on the boards beneath her. He smiled faintly, the first real smile in weeks, and stepped closer. Maybe I should help, he said, taking a broom from the corner. The bristles scraped the wood lightly as he began to follow her rhythm. The dust rose around them both, dancing in the morning light like tiny sparks. The girl glanced up at him. Papa, she said softly, don't go too fast. I won't, he replied, matching her pace, hand brushing the worn handle of the broom as if he could feel the years of the house beneath it, the weight of memory in the boards. The woman leaned against the railing, watching, hands folded, expression softening. She had taught herself to measure time in actions, in small movements, in quiet tests of patience and trust. The sight of the two of them working together, brushing the same boards, was more than symbolic. It was claiming, it was grounding, it was a promise. You've got a rhythm, the girl said, eyes wide. It's steady now. Steady enough, he replied. He bent slightly, brushing over a stubborn patch of dirt, careful not to rush, careful to let her lead the tempo. Outside, the wind tugged at the edges of the porch, rustling loose shingles and stirring leaves, but inside, the rhythm of broom on wood carried, a quiet heartbeat in the house. Dust rose in gentle clouds, then settled again, soft and slow, and the smell of wood, dust, and old memories hung in the morning air. The girl paused, brushing at a stubborn corner. Done, she said finally, small voice triumphant. Almost, he said, sweeping the last patch beside her. He glanced down at her, small face focused, chest rising and falling with the effort. There, he said, stepping back. The older woman exhaled softly, eyes taking in the clean lines of the porch, the soft light falling over the boards, the quiet order of it all. It holds, she said. For now. The girl smiled, brushing dust from her hands. Papa, she said softly, I like it this way. Quiet. Clean. Ours. He nodded, shoulders relaxing. Ours, he echoed. The word felt heavy, full, a final acknowledgement of everything that had come before, the past buried, the threats held at bay, the choices made, the bonds formed. The girl stepped aside, letting him sweep the final stretch. His broom moved over the wood with care, steadying the rhythm, feeling the grain beneath the bristles. The dust rose, settled, and the boards gleamed faintly in the sunlight. Small, quiet victories, he thought. That was what stayed. That was what mattered. The girl crouched again at the edge of the porch, watching him. Papa, she said, softer this time, thank you. He looked at her, really looked, and for the first time in a long time, the weight of years didn't press him down. The house around them seemed to hum quietly, floorboards settling, walls stretching with the weight of their presence, and the past, for once, stayed in its place. The older woman stepped toward the railing, brushing her hands lightly against the wood. We're home, she said simply. The girl nodded, small hands resting on the railing, eyes on the yard, on the horizon, on the quiet promise of the morning. We are, she said. He set his broom aside and crouched beside her, small shoulders brushing against hers. They watched the light move across the boards, across the porch, across the yard. The wind tugged gently at loose leaves, but the porch held, steady beneath them. The girl glanced up. Papa, she whispered, can we do this again tomorrow? We will, he said, voice soft but certain. He took her hand, small and warm, and squeezed lightly. She smiled, eyes bright. Papa, she said again, softer still, a quiet affirmation of everything claimed and everything held. The three of them, child, woman, man, stood together, porch swept, house listening, light stretching across the boards. Outside, the wind moved, but inside, there was rhythm, there was presence, there was home. And the last word, the smallest ritual, landed quietly, Papa.